Pro Football Focus has graded LSU's win over Oklahoma. Were we watching the same game? It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you for that. Brian Kelly highlights a couple of veteran receivers in Aaron Anderson and Chris Hilton. We'll let you hear what the coach had to say in just a quick second. But we do this every week after LSU plays. We comb through the Pro Football Focus data and let you know what it says, and we give you some takeaways. So you don't have to subscribe to Pro Football Focus. We do it for you, and we kind of give you some takeaways. And if you're an everydayer, thank you for that. You've heard me say this before, but if you're new, I'll repeat it. Pro Football Focus is not the metric. It is a metric. It is something to consider when putting together your opinion on how someone played or position groupings or things like that. And sometimes the eye test matches what Pro Football Focus says. For example, you're an LSU fan. You watched the Florida game a few weeks ago. If I were to say to you, what was the biggest issue against Florida offensively for LSU, you would probably say, well, the 7 sacks were a big problem. And you'd be right. And if you went and looked at Pro Football Focus's grades, the 2 lowest graded starters for that game were Paul Mabenga and DJ Chester. Rightfully so. Their pass blocking grades were 49 and 33, respectively. So yes, Pro Football Focus, it's safe to say, got it right with what we all look at as sort of the eye test for that game. It's interesting, though, because I don't necessarily fully agree, and I don't think Brian Kelly does either, with what Pro Football Focus graded for the Oklahoma game. Mind you, this is a game where LSU was firmly in control. Now, you did go through a period where you allowed a defensive score. So that's going to ding someone like Will Campbell for giving up the strip sack. Well, that was DJ Chester, but on the injury to Garrett Nussmeier, that's going to ding Will Campbell for giving up the sack. So some of that stuff will make sense like that. If you look at the highest graded players, offense or defense, among the starters, Braden Swinson with an 89.5. Incredible, especially on senior night. Another senior, Savion Jones at 82.1. How about Kamorian Pimpton? Caught a couple of targets, graded out at 77.2. Very encouraging moving forward. Sage Ryan was 4 Whit Weeks and his 15 tackles, the 5th highest rated player among the starters. When you look at the lowest grades, this is a little more confusing. Gio Paez was the lowest graded starter, played 32 snaps, didn't have a tackle, but by and large, Paez's role this year has been plug the middle and free up some more athletic guys to make plays. Aaron Anderson was the 2nd lowest graded player. Now, obviously, this is just on offense, so it's not considering his 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. He was only targeted 3 times, and he did make 1 catch. But he returned a kickoff for a touchdown, so I don't really care what that receiver grade says. CJ Daniels was the 3rd lowest graded player. And pretty routinely, he's been one of LSU's best offensive players. Not most dynamic, not the best offensive weapons, but the coaches routinely talk about his ability to block. Well, he got dinged with a 46.8 blocking grade on Saturday night. He did come close to a touchdown catch, got broken up at the goal line. Devon Keys, who had 10 tackles, a sack, a TFL. When you look at the snap count for Devon Keys, we've continued to see that go up. Devon Keys played 59 of the 60 defensive snaps for LSU, and he was the 2nd lowest graded starter behind only Gio Paez. Brian Kelly gushed about Devon Keys afterwards, about how he is an assignment sound player. As a matter of fact, I'll let you hear what Brian Kelly said very, very quickly here about Devon Keys.
Devon's a freshman. There are things that, look, he makes some plays, but he's a sound football player. He's assignment correct, and we trust him. And
I mean, that's pretty high praise for the head coach, from the head coach about Devon Keys. Yet he was the second lowest graded starter ahead of only Gio Paez. I tell you what, if that kind of performance where you roll out with double-digit tackles, a sack, a TFL, and your coach is singing your praises, saying your assignment correct, and we trust him, I'm good then with whatever Pro Football Focus labels you with. I'll tell you a couple other things that were interesting. Don McKinley, Brian Kelly said, was unblockable at points in that game. He was kind of just in the middle of the pack, graded out at a 63.4. His pass rush grade was a 68. His tackling grade was actually better than his pass rush grade, which is so weird whenever you talk about a guy that came up with a couple of sacks in the ball game. Whit Weeks and his 15 tackles, only the fourth highest graded player defensively, but maybe that says more about the type of defensive effort that LSU put forward. If you want a couple of encouraging things, Gabriel Relaford had the highest pass rush grade on the entire team. Now, he only played 7 snaps, and 4 of them were pass rush snaps. But Gabe Relaford is a guy who, remember, next year you're going to lose Braden Swinson, you're going to lose Parashand, you're going to lose Savion Jones. You're going to have young guys stepping up in those defensive end spots. Relaford is likely going to be one of those starters, and he continues to maximize those reps. To see a lot of the young guys that played in this game, I continue to be encouraged about the future of this defense. When you look at Whit Weeks coming back, Gabe Relaford coming back, Javier Suggs, the transfer who continues to give you good reps from the interior, Don McKinley, PJ Woodland. We mentioned Devon Keys, Ahmad Bro. That's another one. Brian Kelly said afterwards he thought Ahmad Bro played phenomenal football. He was literally the lowest graded player on the entire team, starters or backups, with a grade of 32. So that was a little perplexing. Again, Pro Football Focus doesn't always get it right. Chris Hilton was the highest graded offensive player. When you're targeted twice and both of your catches go for touchdowns, and you also have a run blocking grade of a 60.4, you're going to grade out pretty highly. Kamorian Pimpton, the second highest graded offensive player. We didn't include Hilton when I was talking about the top 5 a bit ago because he only played 15 snaps. Pimpton played 27. There were 64 offensive snaps for LSU. If you're wondering among the starters, the highest graded starters, number 1, Emory Jones. Number 2, Garrett Nussmeier. Number 3, Miles Frazier, who just continues to be outstanding in pass protection. And that is just one of the reasons why you just need those veteran guys. I feel so badly for Garrett Dellinger, but there was just very clearly a domino effect on this offensive line when Garrett Dellinger went out. But Miles Frazier with a pass blocking grade of 86.0, Will Campbell's pass blocking grade was a 77. Paul Mabinga, this is the biggest takeaway, and I probably should have even started with this. Paul Mabinga, who has been maligned and deservedly so, he replaced Garrett Dellinger, and that was not an easy thing for him to do. But one of the things you want to see with guys like that getting more of an opportunity is improvement. And when you look at the Alabama game, his pass blocking grade was a 26. Against Florida, his pass blocking grade was a 33. Against Vanderbilt, pass blocking grade was a 66. Against Oklahoma, his pass blocking grade was an 86. So from the time he went in against Alabama, which was his first start, 26, 33, 66, 86. Maybe something to keep an eye on and reason to be optimistic about Paul Mabinga moving forward, because that's a guy next year who, when you're losing Campbell and Frazier and Dellinger, we'll see about Emory Jones. That's a guy who very likely is going to find a way to play a role next season. And some of that improvement late in the season, these last 2 weeks, has been pretty encouraging. Okay, it is Locked on LSU, your team every day. Brian Kelly did highlight Aaron Anderson and Chris Hilton. 2 interesting comments, not just about the way they played this year, but about next year. Hint, hint. We'll talk about it next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. Hey, if you want to be in that number, the regular season for LSU football is over, but bowl season is around the bend. The big game for the NFL will be in New Orleans coming up here in less than 10 weeks. You want to be there? You want to know how you can be there? Game Time can help it happen. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can filter only incredible deals on great seats. You can see the view from your seat on your phone before you buy. All-in pricing shows you your total cost up front. You have to turn that feature on and toggle, and you'll see it. And you can buy tickets in seconds with just a couple of taps over at Game Time. And remember, they have their Game Time price guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. That's at Game Time. So what are you waiting on? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem with the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Nobody wanted to see LSU go 8-4 this year, but to finish strong when your goals were off the table, beating Vanderbilt and Oklahoma the way you did, is encouraging about the culture Brian Kelly is building. And there might even be a lot more reason for optimism moving forward because of the freshmen who we've highlighted, many of them, the way that they finished strong. The freshman class LSU is likely to sign coming up on Wednesday as part of the early signing period, the mid-year enrollees, and of course the transfer portal, but also the returning players. Now, Aaron Anderson had a massive moment in the game with the kickoff return for a touchdown. He was only in the game, too, because Xavion Thomas got dinged on the head a little bit, and they were checking him out for a potential concussion. He did return. But Brian Kelly was asked about Aaron Anderson kind of being a guy to set an example. And Kelly was quick to point out he's not there yet, but he's proud of the way Aaron Anderson's working. And listen to how he finished this.
Everything that he does now is he's understanding how to take care of his body, how to eat right, nutrition, sleep right. And I can't wait to continue to work with him. It's really exciting. And what he's doing is making plays on the field. And we can see his raw talent, and it's only going to get better. He is just scratching the surface of where he can be. And so as a coach, you're just so excited. And he, on the other hand, can't wait to get into the offseason and reshape his body and work on the things that he needs to. So this is really an exciting time for him in his development.
He can't wait to get into the offseason and work on his development and reshape his body. In no uncertain terms there, Brian Kelly seems to be telling you that Aaron Anderson is coming back for a third year at LSU and a fourth season. Remember, a 5-star out of Edna Carr, 1 season at Alabama, transferred to LSU a year ago where his production was underwhelming. Now, that was a lot of receivers because they got caught behind Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. But Aaron Anderson this year, 53 receptions, 784 yards, 5 touchdowns. All of those numbers are second on the team only to Kyron Lacey. It is going to be really exciting to see him potentially return, it sounds like, next year and be one of the leaders in that room. Another guy with potential to return is Chris Hilton. And how great was it to see Chris Hilton come back and have a big night in the final night in Tiger Stadium with those 2 touchdown catches.
The deep threat has been missing from our offense, and it's been difficult. Teams have sat down on us. Teams have made it difficult for us because we haven't had that vertical threat. He was out 8 weeks, and it takes a while to get back into rhythm. And we either missed him on overthrows or, the timing wasn't quite, where it needed to be. But it normally takes about 4 weeks to kind of get that. That's why you have preseason camp, and he missed all that time. I'm happy for him. He got the game ball, and he made 2 big plays. That's part of the offense that we were missing and we needed desperately. And when you can push the ball down the field and have the other options that we have within our offensive structure, it allows you to run the football, it allows you to have that intermediate passing game, and then the vertical stretch is, it was huge for us. So we're happy to see that for Chris.
Now you know why we spent so much time in the offseason talking about Chris Hilton. And then while Chris was injured, every week there was questions about his potential return. And I know there was a lot of fatigue with those questions, and a lot of fans wondered why we kept asking those questions. Well, we all had the luxury of seeing Chris Hilton in fall camp, and he was really good. And you saw a glimpse of it. The speed, the athleticism, the physicality, the suddenness, the hands, the 2 touchdown receptions. Certainly the first one in the front corner pylon was amazing. So, man, if you end up getting Aaron Anderson and Chris Hilton back next year, coupled with Kyle Parker coming off of injury, we'll see what happens with some of the younger guys, maybe who hasn't played. If the portal does swallow them up, we'll see. But you're going to bring in receivers in this class, including Teron Francis, who's the number 1 receiver in the state of Louisiana. You've still got Derek Meadows committed. We'll see. He's a 6'6" receiver. Obviously, you move Trey'Dez Green to receiver. Kamorian Pimpton splash. You might be getting Mason Taylor back. My point is, you could look at next year, and I know people are tired of thinking about the future and next year and next year. When is next year going to be now? Returning an awful lot of production is a pretty good way, because as I always say at the beginning of every season, I'll make my predictions on teams based on who has the fewest questions against the most manageable schedule. And LSU already appears to be answering a lot of those questions with some pretty big names returning. And we're anticipating hearing more of those in the coming days. Decisions from guys like Garrett Nussmeier, Harold Perkins, Emory Jones, Mason Taylor. The next month could be really fun for LSU. Finish off this 2025 signing class, have a really good portal class as well in that first portal window, and get a lot of these impact contributors to return. And now all of a sudden you're cooking with grease for 2025. We'll be here talking about it every single day. It is Locked on LSU. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. Hey, do us a favor. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.